G'day and welcome back to Wellywood Wargaming. In this episode I'm going to be discussing Genestealer Cults in Necromunda, how to build good lists, bad lists, funny lists, all sorts of lists, just how you might play them in Necromunda basically. I have prior to this, obviously last year, done a Genestealer Cult gang guide. That one was probably the least in-depth one that I did, I think. It was quite a short video compared to some of the others. So I think they definitely deserved me doing a follow-up video. Now, of course, my thought processes are ever evolving as we play the game. In fact, all of us, we're always learning stuff about the game, which is incredibly rich and deep with its rules and content in general, that is Necromunda. But Genestealer Cult, just to give you the sort of long and short of it, they're excellent in 40k. They've always been a really, really interesting faction, and they certainly deserve a place in Necromunda, and I think the fluff around them is excellent. The models are also excellent too. I do think, however, that the rules, even though they have been errated several times and there have been sort of things added and taken away from the Genestealer Cult rules in Necromunda, I do feel still that there is something lacking and they don't quite match up to the other gangs in their sort of uniqueness and whatnot. It's hard to put my finger on it really, but I think they're about due for an update. Whether that's going to come or not, I'm not really sure. But there's a few things that I would do as a sort of rules designer to change them slightly and bring them more up to date. I won't discuss that too much today though. What I'm going to be doing is talking about lists and list building for Genestealer cultists in Necromunda. They can be quite challenging to build lists from. However, you have got lots and lots and lots of options for different builds and different loadouts, lots of good weapons, and lots of interesting pieces as well that you can choose from in a Genestealer Cult list. So, without giving you too much spiel on Genestealer Cult in general, again, I've done that gang guide, which has got a little bit more in depth about what they are and how you play them and stuff like that. This is purely about list building, so if you're looking at building a Genestealer Cult gang and playing it in a campaign or even skirmish games in Necromunda, or maybe you play Kill Team and you want to make the crossover to Necromunda, which is by far the superior game if you ask me, then you can do so with very little effort. If you play 40k as well and you have a Genestealer Cult army, then all you need is about 10 miniatures and you can transfer them across into Necromunda. You don't need anything new, and they're pretty cheap and pretty easy and great gang to get into for beginners, I would say as well. They're not that complex, all in all. So, getting straight into it then, I'm going to give you 3 different lists that I've made here. Now, the 3 different lists in question, one of them is the sort of most accessible and easy box to get into, and this is the box build, or list to get into. This is the box build. I try to do a box build for every one of these list building videos. For those of you who are perhaps a bit tight on cash, or you just don't have the time and effort to be able to buy lots of different miniatures and assemble and convert and stuff, this is the easiest list to create, the box build. I've also done a sort of semi-competitive build as well, which I think is quite good. It's not by any means utterly, completely 100% maximal sort of power list, but that's not why we play Necromunda. There are, however, some good choices in here, and it's taking advantage of all the pieces and all of the good weapons that you can pretty much get on a Genestealer Cult list. The third build is the most fun build. This is the sort of build that I would usually use, and now that I've done it, just like my Outcast video recently, now that I've done it, I now want to play them in a campaign. Like I had my heart set on doing nomads in this upcoming campaign, and I've painted them all up and they look wicked, but now I've done some of these lists, I'm kind of like, oh shit, shall I do these instead? But that's just the way it is. I'm very flaky when it comes to Necromunda gangs, and usually leave it till the last minute. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into some of these lists here, and I'll explain what my thought processes were, why I've chosen certain pieces and whatnot. Let's get into it. The first list that we're going to be going through here is the Genestealer Cult box list. This is the most accessible, cheapest and easiest Genestealer Cult list to get into for Necromunda, and it translates pretty well to Kill Team of 40k too, and this is literally one box of Genestealer Cult neophytes. Okay, so I don't know how much they retail at in the UK and whatnot, but here they're probably about 80 bucks or something, 70, 80 bucks. It's not an expensive kit, but it is I would say the single best, and I really mean this, the single best conversion or kit bash kit for anything in 40k, if you ask me. The amount of parts and weapons and legs and heads and whatnot I have used from this hybrid, this Acolyte, whatever it's called, not Acolyte, sorry, Neophyte box is incredible. You can never have too many of these sprues. They are just fantastic, particularly for Necromunda. You've got shotguns, auto guns, web guns, all sorts of shit that you're going to use in other gangs as well. And the arms and legs and bodies and stuff just look really, really cool. They're lovely to paint. They are scaled okay. They're not too small. But yeah, the main thing for me is the aesthetic is just absolutely bang on. I love them. Love them to bits. Anyway. This is the box build, this is the most accessible one, and this is the one you can make from just that single 2 sprues or whatever that you get in that box of Neophytes. So starting off with your leader, this is your alpha. Now we can choose 2 different leaders when it comes to Genestealer Cults, but because of this box, we don't really get someone who looks like a weird or a psyker, so we're going to go with the alpha instead of the adept. The adept is the psyker, the alpha is the, the top G, I suppose, of the Genestealer Cult build. If you excuse my French there. So anyway, Alpha Top G, he's your Cult Alpha. Clocking in at 235 credits, he's quite expensive, but he is one of the better leaders in the game, I would say, certainly for the non-house gangs. He has really good stats. He's, average movement, weapon skill and ballistic skill 3. He's got strength 4 though, which is fantastic, and he comes with the 3rd arm as well, which is baked into his cost there too. Now he does come with 2 wounds, 2 attacks, which is pretty typical, initiative of 3 up as well. But he's got a leadership of 3+, which is disgustingly good, a cool of 5+, a willpower of 5+, and an intelligence of 4+. So his mental stats are absolutely off the chain there, if you ask me. Now, of course, we're sticking with the actual physical stuff that you get in this box here. So we're going to take advantage of the fact that we get a hand flamer in this box and we get a really lovely looking power pick. Now, it's not the most optimal loadout, I know. The hand flamer is pretty good though, but I do really like the power pick. I think it looks amazing and it really suits the mining aesthetic of these guys. The thing I do like about the power pick though, it's not only is it power, but it also has pulverize, meaning that you can turn flesh wounds into serious injuries, etc. And it also has -3 AP, which is absolutely massive. Again, it chews through carapace armor, it chews through lots of different armor types late on in a campaign, so it won't make a huge amount of difference early on in a campaign, the AP, but that AP -3 just goes through literally anything, even late on in campaigns. Squats, you name it, it's going through it. So, a hazard suit has been equipped here, and we've also given him the skill hip shooting, which is means you can run and gun with that hand flamer, which is just fantastic. Again, it's a little bit cheesy, it's a little bit corny, but we're taking full advantage of what we can do with this box set. It isn't the most optimal list, but it is everything that you'll get in that box set. So if you're going to get some skills, your leader does get access to shooting skills, so why not take them? They are arguably the best skills in the game, or skill tree in the game. So hip shooting is the choice there. Power pick and hand flamer, very nice indeed. And that's your leader, that's it. The next thing we're going to do is 2 champions. Now the champions don't have to look any different from your average neophyte. You can use the Acolyte box if you want, and the Genestealer sort of whatever they're called, Acolytes. But if we're going to stick with just the basics of buying this neophyte box and using that, then it's got everything in there that you really need. So the first Acolyte anyway, these are your champions. Now just quickly, Genestealer Cult champions, Genestealer Cult acolytes are terrible. The reason being is that they've only got 1 wound. Now I can't for the life of me figure out why Games Workshop hasn't come back and errated this to give them 2 wounds like every other champion in the game, but unfortunately they don't. They only have 1 wound, it's not very good. Basically, so they've got okay stats otherwise though, really good cool and leadership again. With weapon skill and ballistic skill of 3 up 2. However, they're pretty slow with movement 4, but that is the rest of your gang actually, movement 4 across the board. And again, I think if Games Workshop did an errata, they would probably bring Genestealer Cult up to movement 5, at least I would anyway, and actually push squats down to movement 3. You heard it here first, I would absolutely go back on that movement 4 on squats and put them down to movement 3. That's besides the point. This acolyte, the first champion, is armed with what we call a mining laser. Now, mining lasers are pretty much just one step down from a las cannon. They're a lot cheaper. They're not as accurate and they're not quite as strong, but they are still absolutely terrifying. We've given him a third arm as well, which is something that you can actually pay for. I believe it's 45 credits to pay for a third arm, which seems expensive, but it does act as a suspensor and an extra attack in close combat as well. So you can move and shoot with this mining laser. Now it has a 24-inch maximum range and an 18-inch short range. 18-inch short range is actually pretty good. However, it does have a -1 to hit at long range. So you most of the time you're going to be hitting on 4s if there's no cover, 6s if there is cover. But yeah, if you do get a shot in with a mining laser, it is strength 9, 3 damage and -3 AP. So similar to getting hit by a power pick in the face as well, but with strength 9 and 3 damage. So the best thing, in fact, one of the best things about the mining laser here, which is quite unique to heavy weapons, is it does have a fantastic ammo roll of a 3+ as well, which is quite strange. I guess because it's a las weapon, it's got a slightly easier to get hold of las cartridges, I believe. But yeah, 3+ ammo, pretty cool. So if it does run out of ammo, then you've got another one. The skill that we're going to go for here is, of course, a ferocity skill called Nerves of Steel. I do think Nerves of Steel teamed with a heavy weapon is just fantastic. Means that you can just do whatever you want with it. And you're just not getting pinned with a call of 5+ very often either, so you can just shoot back most of the time and toast people with that strength 9, 3 damage and -3 AP mining laser. So we had to go for the mining laser there. I think it is maybe 5 credits or 10 credits cheaper than your classic heavy stubber there as well. So I definitely think it's a better weapon than the heavy stubber overall for dishing out damage, certainly. The second acolyte, this is your second champion, so you've got to take advantage of that here. We're going to go for quite a fun build here. Again, it's not completely optimal, but I do really like this. And if you haven't played with this build, it can be incredibly fun and incredibly disruptive and annoying for your opponent as well. If this works, it's amazing. If it doesn't work, it's a giant sort of wet fart, I suppose. But we're going to go with the infiltrating bomber. Now, this is a great build. I had someone in my campaign, shout out to you, Brendan, by the way, who used to do this and play Genestealer Cult with this horrific demolition charge infiltrating acolyte. And half the time it works, half the time it doesn't, but it's super fun if it does. So the idea with this guy is you give him a demolition charge. I have actually given him an incendiary charge as well, just as backup, because the demo charge is 1 shot. We've got an auto pistol and a fighting knife there as well. No third arm, but he does have a hazard suit and infiltrate as his skill. So the idea here is you infiltrate sort of behind enemy lines, and if you get the drop and you get turn 1, you drop that demolition charge, you get that initiative, sorry, in turn 1, you drop that demolition charge on a leader, or better off maybe a bunch of people, and your demolition charge is pretty much killing everybody with strength 6, 3 damage and -3 AP with a blast 5-inch template. So very nasty indeed, and he's got a ballistic skill of 3 up as well, so more often than not you're hitting with it too. However, do remember that it's only strength times 2, so you can only throw at 6 inches, which is kind of dangerous. If it misses, it's quite likely to hit you. But it's just really fun. I think the incendiary charge as well as a backup is quite nice there. It is expensive. I think that's about 100 credits of just 2 grenades, but it's really fun. Do it, try it out. Now, of course, the other option on this would be giving him a web gun and infiltrate. You don't get shooting skills on your acolytes, but the web gun is just a fantastic weapon. I would say it's slightly more optimal than this choice, but I do think this is more fun generally, so go down the bomber route if you ask me. The next thing is onto your gangers, your neophytes. Now there's quite a few of these. In fact, we've got 4, but the first one is a specialist, because you have to take a specialist. You always take a specialist if you can. And we've given him a grenade launcher with frag and crack. Now it's worth pointing out actually that neophytes, as well as your acolytes, I believe, get hazard suits baked in. In fact, so does your leader. Hazard suits are baked into the cost of the fighter. So 45 credits, which means they're 35 credits plus a hazard suit, basically, is really good, really cheap, and they've got great mental stats with a call of 5 up on your neophyte hybrids, which is fantastic, meaning when they do bottle, they tend to stick around a bit like Goliaths. They've also got good willpower and decent, good willpower and cool anyway. Leadership and intelligence, not so good. However, they are only movement 4. That is the sort of caveat there. But the first neophyte hybrid is a specialist, like I said, with a grenade launcher. Always take a grenade launcher if you can. There is a grenade launcher in this box, I believe, as well, so absolutely got to be done. And he's your sort of long-range support, I suppose, popping frag grenades off 24 inches away. The next thing is 3 neophyte hybrids. 2 of them are armed identically with just auto guns. They come with the hazard suits as well. And then we've got 1 with a shotgun with solid and scatter for extra damage there as well. So that is 7 fighters, 2 champions and a leader. It's a well-balanced list. I think the leader's really nice, sort of protecting the mining laser perhaps. The mining laser dishing out lots of damage. So does the demolition charge there if you get that one going off. It's a nice balanced list. I think you've got a bit of rapid fire. You've got your damage 2 weapon with your solid shotgun rounds as well, and you've got a grenade launcher in there too. So a 7 fighters I think is kind of absolutely fine for Genestealer Cult with that high call. You know, once you lose 2 fighters and you're taking bottle checks, you know, most of the time you're actually passing those call checks as well with calls of 5 all around. So very, very good. I like this list. It doesn't use familiars, it doesn't use aberrants, it doesn't use some of the things that you would get in a wider list built for Genestealer Cults, but I think this is a really great starting point if you're going to buy that neophyte box. And if you're new to the game, you're new to Necromunda, this is the list I would sort of recommend you doing. And again, it's up to you whether you want to have the demo charge Acolyte. There is actually a demo charge arm in the, or not demo charge, but at least a sort of dynamite stick in the box that you get, so you could totally use that as the demo charge. Otherwise, yeah, do use the web gun. You might have to do a little bit of shuffling around because I think the web gun will be a bit more expensive, but totally doable. But this is a really good list. Let's have a look at the other list now. All right then, so moving on to the second of the 3 lists. This one is arguably the most competitive. It's not a super meta list, and it's not going to win all tournaments and things if you did do anything like that in Necromunda. But again, just to reiterate, I don't really play for winning. I play for the narrative. But if you were to pick a Genestealer Cult list that isn't cheesy but just is kind of good and balanced as well, then this is the one that I would probably go for. It's got a little bit of everything in there as well, which is kind of cool, but you would need more than just that one neophyte box set to actually do this. So now, arguably, I would say that most people prefer the Alpha over the Adept as a leader choice. I'm the other way around. I actually prefer the Adept to the Alpha. Sure, the Alpha is better stats all round, but the Adept is a Psyker. Now, Psykers have got a lot better since the Book of the Outcast, of course. We now have access to 7 beautiful different weird power lists, and I would say, as a general rule of thumb, that all Psykers pretty much get access to the Universal Psyker list. Having said that, before the Book of the Outcast was actually out, the choices for the Cult Adept weren't particularly great. Now, however, I would say telepathy, again, is probably the one that fits, the telepathy tree is the one that fits the Adept the most. So that's what we're going to go with here. We're not going to go with an Alpha, we're going to go with an Adept. And the Adept, of course, is your Psyker with his willpower of 5, which is very good. His call of 5+2, his leadership of 3+, intelligence 4+, again, so the same mental stats as your Alpha. This one clocks in 195 credits, so he's a bit cheaper. He doesn't come with armor, so we've bought him mesh armor there as well. So he's the only fighter apart from aberrants who don't get armor baked into the cost there. And the weapons we've given him here are an auto pistol and a shock stave. So the shock stave, you can use a staff, you can use one of the, there are a couple of different choices for the Adept actually. There's the female Genestealer Cult Psyker that you can use, which is quite a cheapish single sort of hero model that you can get from Warhammer 40k. There's also the Psyker, the classic sort of arms and staff Genestealer Cult Psyker that you get in the Brood Coven, I believe, as well. That's actually quite nice to buy because you get a couple of psychic familiars in there too, and a nice Alpha actually with 3 arms. Anyway, so those are the weapons that I've given him. He hasn't got a long range weapon. This guy, you know, he's built purely for doing weird powers and popping off telepathy. I would say telepathy is the strongest choice, and I'd say that it kind of fits the Cult Adept in terms of his fluff. Telepathy seems to make sense to me, but you could go down any route that you like. You could do biomancy, you could do technomancy, you could do pyromancy, any of them, to be honest. But I do think telepathy fits the best, and I'd probably give him something like hallucinations, which is arguably the best one in the bunch. Almost broken, actually. I've said this a few times. You could also give them mind control, which they already had access to before. You could give them terrify. I really like terrify as well. But there are a number of different weird powers that you can give this guy, and with a willpower of 5 up and maybe 1 increase later on to make it 4 up, you're quite often setting off those weird powers and hoping not to roll double 1 or double 6s, of course. Anyway, so that's the leader there for 195 credits. The next thing are your 2 acolytes. I have taken 2 champions in this list as well, despite their wounds of 1, just because you kind of really need them because they've got the better stats and they've also got the better access to some weapons as well. So the first hybrid acolyte we're going to give a web gun to. Web guns are just fantastic weapons. We've given this guy infiltrate as well. So like I said with the first list, we went with the bomber infiltrator. This time we're going for the infiltrating web gun, which is just as scary, if not more scary, to be honest, because you auto hit with that web gun most of the times. Anyway, hazard suit, and we're giving him a psychic familiar as well. In fact, just going back quickly, both of the acolytes in this list and the cult adept all have a psychic familiar pet on them. Now, psychic familiars are 25 credits, and they are fucking excellent. Even with a sort of rules errata to make them only use their special ability, Omen of Fortune, once per turn instead of constantly, which is what it used to be. They're still really, really good value. You can pretty much shake off a hit once per round, whether it's from a las cannon or whatever, just by using your psychic familiar. So they can also do things for you, open loot crates, open doors, other stuff, maybe even get coup de grace as well. So they're very, very handy to have around. For 25 credits a pop, you're going to take them, really. You'd be mad not to. So we've gone for psychic familiars on all 3 of these guys. That was your second hybrid acolyte there, and he clocks in at 235 credits with the hazard suit, psychic familiar, and infiltrate as well. The hazard suits are included in the cost there as well. The second acolyte, second champion, we've gone with a long las. You don't get access to long rifles with a Genestealer Cult list, but you do get long lases. Now, long lases are cheaper at 20 credits than a long rifle. They're not quite as good though, but they do have excellent ammo of a 2-up. They don't have -1 AP, and they don't have knockback either. However, they are plentiful with a 2-up ammo. And they are 36-inch range as well, so slightly shorter than a long rifle, I believe, but not by a huge amount. But still, for 20 credits, very, very good. And the skill that we've given this acolyte is Overwatch, so meaning that you can interrupt interrupt your opponent's movements and whatnot by popping off shots when they declare a movement and stuff. So really, really good skill to have, more as a threat than anything. But I do like the long las. It's a good weapon, but I think you're probably going to end up buying him something else later on down the track in the campaign that dishes out a bit more damage, perhaps. But for now, the long las is pretty good. Same as the list before, we're going to go with a specialist here with a grenade launcher, frag and crack. He comes with a hazard suit as well, and he comes in at a nice 100 credits here. That is your neophyte hybrid specialist. The next thing, and the new thing that we're going to add to this list, is an aberrant. Now, you can have as many aberrants as gangers, because they are technically gangers. That's changed recently, so we're going to go with an aberrant, which is 145 credits. I'm going to give him a hazard suit because they don't come with hazard suits for 10 credits, and a power pick as well, just because they look cool. It's not the most optimal one. If you really want to go optimal with the aberrant, I'd probably just take 2 knives or something, or even you can take shock staves and things like that on them as well. Shock whips even, so 3-inch versatile range on a aberrant is quite nice too. But these guys are excellent. They've got 2 wounds, so they kind of make up for the champions having only 1 wound. They've got 2 attacks, and they're really, really strong. Strength 5, toughness 4. They're a bit faster with movement 5 as well, so that's good to have. And weapon skill 3 up too, with a cool of 4 up, so even better than your average ganger there too. I really, really like aberrants. So that's nice to have a little bit of a more solid, stronger sort of rock in your gang as well. The next thing are 3 neophytes. 2 are the same as the last list, armed with auto guns for 60 credits, and the last one has got a shotgun for that extra little bit of damage and slightly shorter range there as well. So a really nice list. We've got 8 fighters in that list, so it's even better than the one before, and I do think that is a very, very strong list. Again, you could totally meta crunch this one and make it even stronger, but I do think that's a pretty good one. It doesn't have a huge amount of damage dealing, but it's well balanced for me, and it ticks all the boxes in terms of playing style and adaptability, particularly with the psychic powers and the aberrant in there as well. So that's my second build. The last build is my build. So this is the kind of build that I'm already thinking about actually using in the next campaign. Now, it's terrible. It's going to be absolutely rubbish in the game. I know that much. So, you know, I'm fully aware of this, but it is super fun. So, and this is why. So we're going to go with an alpha instead of an adept as the leader. I'm going to call this my aberrant build. So anyway, so the alpha top G in this one is going to have 3 auto pistols with he's got a hazard suit and a third arm built in there as well, and we're going to give him gunfighter as the skill. Now this is a little bit ambiguous, I suppose. There's a little bit of you know, people unsure about how gunfighter works with 3 arms. Can you shoot all 3 pistols at once? Most arbitrators will say yeah, because it's cool. And there's also the Genestealer Cult Killer Morph, who does have 3 arms and 3 auto pistols. It's a fantastic miniature, so you can use that as your leader. And you've got a potential 9 auto pistol shots coming out of this guy, not to mention in close combat it's really nasty too. They're only auto pistols, so they're only strength 3 and there's no AP on them, but you can get, you know, rad rounds or whatever different types of rounds you want to get later on through the campaign. I do think the 3 auto pistol build for 175 credits is really, really fun and fluffy. Now, he comes complemented by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 aberrants. Now aberrants, like I said, they do count as gangers, at least in the rule book that I've got here, so I don't think I'm wrong there anyway. A lot of people are unsure about that one, but it clearly states in the rule book version that I've got here that they are gangers and they count as gangers, so I can have as many of them as I want. And anyway, it's terrible in the game, so even if you couldn't, I'd still think that most arbitrators are going to let you do this. But we've got 6 aberrants. I've given them all hazard suits for 10 credits each, because I do feel that being prone to being set on fire is not very helpful for an aberrant. Plus, to be honest, just having a 6-up save is nice. You could totally give them flak armor and it would be arguably better, but I do think if you've got Cawdor or Redemptionists in your campaign, then hazard suits are the better option. The first 2 have got power picks, equally armed with power picks. I do just really like the power picks, and if you're going to buy a box of aberrants, then you do get lots of power picks and power hammers in there as well. The second option I've got here is 2 fighting knives on each. So I've got 2 with power picks and 2 with 2 fighting knives each, which gives you that extra attack. So you've got 4 attacks on the charge, and with -1 AP. It's not bad at all. It's got backstab as well, which hardly comes off in games, but when it does, it does. And then we've got the last 2 aberrants I've given shock whips to, because apparently they do get access to shock whips, according to this anyway. And a shock whip gives you that 3-inch long, you know, versatile range there as well. And now they're -1 to hit in close combat, but if you use them at versatile range, that gives you 8, 9, 10, 11-inch charge range possible, which is pretty scary if you ask me, especially at strength 6, because your shock whip is strength +1 and these aberrants are strength 5. So strength 6, wounding most things on a 2, and of course shock auto wounding as well on 6s. Pretty nasty indeed. I do like the idea of shock whips. How you model them, I'm not really sure, but I think some of the aberrants do have kind of scorpion tails or long tails, so you could just sort of say that the tail counts as the whip. That would be one way around it, but that's 995 credits anyway. You could give someone here 5 credits worth of stuff, but I'm not really sure what. You could change one of the hazard suits to mesh armor or something like that if you really wanted to as well. Anyway, that's my aberrant list. Of course, it's completely silly. It's terrible. They can't even take war gear. They can only take close combat weapons and armor. You can't take equipment or war gear for them, so it's a real shame because you can't give them grenades to chuck. That would be really fun. But, you know, 6 aberrants charging towards you with a guy with 3 auto pistols popping off shots behind you. I think it's really fun. I'd like to play it. You know, of course, most people will find a way around and beat this list pretty easily, but you know, if they get up in your face, in your Swayze, then you're kind of screwed, to be honest. Anyway, that was my Genestealer Cult list building video. I hope you enjoyed that, and it gives you some idea of what you can do with Genestealer Cults in Necromunda. Of course, there are far more options than just this, but there's so many nice models to choose from, and excuse the birds out there, by the way. I think my cats have started attacking them or something. They're all freaking out there. Anyway, That's it for now. I'm going to follow this video up with a piece of news, an announcement, but I'll have to come back and do that in a second. Anyway, please do like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon. I've actually put some merch up on Teespring as well, so feel free to check that out. I think the link should be in my YouTube merchandise section as well, or shop, or whatever it's called. But check that out if you want to get t-shirts and stickers and things like that. I'm just trialing it out at the moment to see how it looks. Yeah, otherwise I will catch you on the flip side. Peace out.